please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Hi there, I'm Chris Trengove at Alternate Ending, and I'm here with Iuli, the writer-director of the 2021 Sundance film, The Pink Cloud. Iuli, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and chat with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for watching the film.
Of course. Now, I do have to ask you up front, are you a time-traveling wizard by any chance?
Yes, I can see your future. If you want, we can book a meeting for that.
Okay, good. That's good to know. I'm probably not the first person to ask you that, but of course I do ask because the opening remarks to your film state that it was written in 2017, shot in 2019, and any connection to real life events are coincidental. And I thought to myself, well, that's a little strange to include something like that at the beginning of the movie. You usually see that toward the end of the end credits. Mm-hmm. But within 10 minutes or so, you quickly realize why you included those remarks. And that's because your movie is about people quarantining from an exterior airborne toxin. And so my question to you is, how wild has it been to make the Pink Cloud and then only to experience some of the events that your characters experience? And did the pandemic in any way change or affect your process throughout post-production?
So yes, we shot in 2019 and 2020, the pandemic was hitting Brazil in March 2020, more or less. And it was crazy. Like lots of people from the crew and from the cast, they were sending me messages saying, have you seen this news? Have you seen this? What is happening? Our film is becoming reality. This is exactly like that scene from the film. So we had the anxiety of like being in the pandemic and another layer of anxiety of like, but we just shot that last year. So, because it was a sci-fi, and then when a sci-fi becomes reality, many people were commenting, it feels like we are in a film. And I'm like, yes, it feels like we are in our film. So, right. So it was very bizarre for us. And the post-production was during the pandemic, so many things were done remotely and, through the internet, Zoom, and sending things back and forth, which is not the ideal situation. But we just changed one thing in the film. The film, in the beginning, the Pink Cloud was just in Brazil, and then we just changed it, saying that it was worldwide. So, and we just needed to change one image. In the beginning, we have the Pink Cloud in London, and that was it. Because I think there was not a scene where we felt, nobody will think that, nobody will say that, nobody will have that emotion. I think that was the lucky part of the film and the writing process. I think the emotions that are on the film are emotions that we can have. Not everybody, of course, but many people can relate to them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It quickly became a topic, an experience that pretty much of the world could relate to over our last 2 years' experience. You mentioned the cloud. The cloud really is its own character in the film beyond Giovanna and Iago. It's this essence of dread and forcing people to come to terms with themselves. Except it's also very beautiful aesthetically. It's this gorgeous hue of pink. And I'm curious, how did you go about designing it? It's pink hue that certainly evolves over the movie. It becomes more oppressive at times, but it's pink hue and it's dissonant musical theme.
Yeah, so I created the cloud with the VFX team, with Dotti in São Paulo. But my DOP, Bruno Polidoro, was always by myself and by my side, and I needed him because it was a difficult process creating the cloud. And we always wanted the cloud to be pink and, soft pink and fluffy and cute, but then it kills you. So, having this contrast of like this thing that is almost like a cotton candy, it kills us in 10 seconds. And then the cloud, as you said, it changes in the film, like it follows Giovanna's emotional process. The cloud becomes darker and more frightening. but we always wanted that contrast of like it's beautiful and poetic and kind of seductive. It is seductive in a way, and and beautiful, but it kills you, because we could have a very scary cloud and purple with, I don't know, but we wanted the contrast and seeing how that would create this strange feeling, but having the proof that it kills in the beginning of the film.
Yeah. You mentioned Cotton Candy, and I think that's interesting. One of the first recent movies that came to mind when I saw the pink cotton candy colored cloud come in was Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman, and sort of the cotton candy pink hues that she uses throughout to soften you up and entice you towards the character. Clearly, the cloud itself is some pretty cool sci-fi. Have you loved science fiction before? And are there any sci-fi movies that inspired the pink cloud?
Yeah, so it is funny that my short films, one is kind of sci-fi, but I prefer the kind of sci-fi that is intimate. And focus on characters and not the big sci-fis, with the world ending. So I really like, for example, Under the Skin. And one references was a sci-fi that's not actually a sci-fi, but it's Melancholia by Lars von Trier. So I was like, let's think more about Melancholia and less Alien or Shyamalan, and nothing against those films, but it's just not what I was trying to do. I prefer to make things, even that there is a pink cloud worldwide killing lots of people, like let's focus on this couple, it's always a choice of how broad or how small, or what's the focus of your film. So yes, I really like sci-fi and surrealistic films. One reference was Exterminating Angel by Buñuel. So, I like bringing these elements, these strange elements, but then focusing on the drama and on the characters.
I like that. So a little less Roland Emmerich and a little more scenes from a marriage if there happened to be a global alien pandemic outside. Speaking of which, the setting is obviously crucially important here, given that most of the entire movie is set in the one apartment. How did you and your team go about designing the set?
Mm-hmm. So yes, for us it was very important that they had this comfortable apartment with space. And unfortunately, we know it's not the reality of the majority of Brazilians. But I needed Iago to be okay in the apartment, even 9 years ahead. It's not, but let's focus on the bright side. We are fine. Like he keeps repeating on the film, we are fine, we are fine. And Giovanna's like, oh my God, I am not fine. So if they were in this 30-meter square apartment, I think even Iago, he would not be okay. So, having 2 floors and big windows where we could see the cloud, it was very important. And then the idea was like, as if the cloud happened now, and then things will not get too futuristic. It's like things get stuck in time. The style and the clothes and the design doesn't change a lot because the world is kind of in standby. And of course, when the child comes, she destroys a little bit. The walls are painted by the child, and small details that we were discussing with the production designer, so we could have the apartment changing, but not becoming futuristic or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned Giovanna and her, what she's going through at the beginning, and that she's not fine in this situation, whereas Iago is. I actually noticed perhaps similarities to another present day character, and that's Olivia Colman's Leda in Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Lost Daughter. Both Giovanna and Leda seem to be forced into situations that they don't really want to be a part of, and they're trying to seek an exit for themselves. And I'm curious if you could give more of your thoughts on Giovanna and how you went about writing her character arc.
Yes, I love it. The Lost Daughter is like a perfect movie for me. And for sure, it also deals with maternity and, breaking the notion that every woman is supposed to be a mother and every woman wants that. And Giovanna, from the beginning, she says, I don't want children. Like, I don't want to take my child to a Peppa Pig party. And Iago is like, but you don't have to, because we are in the pink cloud. And it's like, okay, but so you want to bring up a child inside this situation? Like, it's crazy. And the idea of the cloud being pink, and pink representing the color set aside for women, is like the cloud is forcing her to follow steps that traditional women should follow by the point of view of society, So it's like, okay, she doesn't want to be in the apartment, to be with this man, to have children, but the cloud is suffocating her and making her follow these steps. And that is very hard for them. And then we see how she reacts to it.
Right. Which in the end, without giving anything away, there is a note of ambiguity in the end. Was it important for you to not button up the story like that and leave on more of an ambiguous note?
Yes, for sure. Like, when I can do a small presentation about the film before the screenings, like in online festivals or in-person festivals, I always say, try to find your own meaning for the pink cloud, because I know, of course, you will think about COVID and our situation, but what is your personal meaning for the pink cloud? And I have found great answers for that in different countries, and it's amazing. Sometimes people say, oh, what is the message of your film? What message?
Right.
I'm like, I'm not a priest to say a message. There is not a message, but my idea is like stimulating people to think, to find their own meaning, and to find their meaning for the end, for the pink cloud, for Giovanna's journey. And it's great. Like, I really love to hear different meanings that people find.
Great. That sort of addresses my next question. Is there something that you hoped people would take away from it? But I do think you're communicating a lot through this movie, and some of it is pretty bleak. The cards are stacked against humanity. Don't marry with haste. Perhaps accept the awfulness at times and move on. But there certainly are glimmers of hope, and you want the characters to look inward as well as the audience to look inward. But was there anything that inspired you to tell this story and to make this movie?
Yes, I think there are many themes on the film, but I think it tells a lot about freedom and what freedom means to each individual. So for me, like, I would be happy if people left the movie thinking, oh, is there something in my life that I didn't realize that I'm trapped by, and maybe I don't need to be, or just think about what your notion of freedom and happiness is, and that sometimes it doesn't need to be the same one as society wants to have. People have different notions of happiness, and it's okay to be open to all of them.
That's great. Well, it looks like time for one last question. And this is your first feature film. And so, of course, that's very exciting. Congratulations. I'm curious, what's next for you, and what lessons from your production of The Pink Cloud will you be taking on to your next project?
Yeah, so my idea is to continue writing things that have sci-fi or fantasy elements, but keeping it more intimate and focus it on characters. So I'm writing a couple of things that they're not inspired by real events, nor Brazil or a specific country. And, I like to have sci-fi and different elements, fantasy elements, and then seeing how people would realistically react to them. So I think that it's the path that I'm following right now.
Well, that's awesome. I think that type of sci-fi, the pink cloud you referenced, Under the Skin, et cetera, more intimate, that definitely will always have a home at Alternate Ending and our viewers. So looking forward to speaking to you with your next project when it comes about.
Perfect.
Well, that's that. The Pink Cloud opens in select theaters on Friday, January 14th, 2022. And I recommend everyone going and seeing it. Iuli, thank you so much for your time and your insight, and best of luck with the release.
Thank you so much.